E.T. here. The first seriously controversial heavyweight championship encounter took place on July 29, 1902, in San Francisco. It was between the champion James J. Jeffries and former champion Bob Fitzsimmons. The title was on the line, as it was 2 years earlier when Jeffries took it from Fitz. I think that was an 11th round knockout in Brooklyn. Spoiler alert, Jeffries again won. It was with an 8th round knockout. But this story isn't so much about the fight as it is two still debated issues that surround it. The allegations were and remain the following. 1. Fitzsimmons' hands were soaked in plaster or wrapped in something that resulted in Jeffries being cut up. And number 2, the 8th round knockout was a fix. In other words, Fitzsimmons threw the fight. Well, the fight went this way. Jeffries was by far the larger and younger of the two. At age 27, Jeffries weighed around 206, maybe up to 218 pounds, versus a 39-year-old Fitzsimmons, who weighed somewhere between 166 and 180 pounds. Heavyweights back there did not need to weigh in, so it was either guessing by reporters or reliance on what the fighters said. Whatever, there was no doubt regarding Fitzsimmons' age of 39, considered back then ancient for any athlete, let alone one fighting for a heavyweight crown. The fight was pretty much all Fitzsimmons for 8.5 rounds. By round 2, the champion Jeffries, crouching, missing, was bleeding from a broken nose, later from eye cuts. Up until round 8, it was pretty much the same story. Jeffries, always the aggressor, moving forward, swinging, as Fitzsimmons very nimbly sidestepped away, peppering the champion with punches as he retreated. In the 3rd round, according to Spokane's Daily Chronicle, Fitzsimmons was landing jabs to the seemingly worried face of Jeff, and to quote the review, or the Chronicle, the lanky Fitzsimmons was cool, he got out of the way, Jeffrey's face was covered with blood at the end of the round, and from his nose and a gash over the right eye. The San Francisco Examiner said it was all Fitz's round. Jeffrey's face, and I'm quoting, was bathed in blood, his nose swollen, his right eye puffed and cut. The 5th round ended, and I'm again quoting the Chronicle. Fitzsimmons put a right over Jeffrey's left eye, cutting it, bringing blood. Jeffries was bleeding from the nose, the left eye, the right cheek. The only mark on Fitzsimmons was a slight abrasion on the right cheek. In round 7, again quoting, Fitzsimmons jabbed him 3 times on the mouth, forced Jeffries to the ropes. Jeffries came back like an enraged bull, bleeding from nose, mouth, and each cheek. Jeffries was bleeding and presented a terrible appearance. It's round 8 when things got strange. Now, the newspapers give some very different accounts. The San Francisco Called gave us a pretty clear story when it said the round began with Jeffries, bloody but seemingly fresh, moving forward, his right hand held high. Fitzsimmons seeming to show some tiredness, sidestepping. Sometime, somewhere around mid-round, Jeffries got Fitzsimmons cornered, and he delivered a terrific solar plexus punch with his left hand, followed by a right to the head. Fitzsimmons tries to beat the count, pulls himself up by the ropes, but he failed to beat that count. Controversy arose because Fitzsimmons, prior to that stomach punch, dropped his guard and spoke to Jeffries, who immediately reacted. The question is, why would Fitzsimmons, who according to the San Francisco Examiner and most other papers, held the points lead throughout the fight, why would he drop his guard and speak to the champion? What did he say? This question became urgent the next day when the mayor in San Francisco, I forgot his name, Smith or Schmidt, something like that, told the press later that he'd received, and he used the word communication, I'm assuming a letter, not to be opened until after the fight. And that communication said that Jeffries was going to win in the 8th round. Remember, this is days before the fight. The mayor then said, if the charge couldn't be proved untrue, he will, and I'm quoting the mayor, be compelled to prohibit such exhibitions hereafter. It remains unknown who wrote that communication, if the mayor did anything about it. Whatever. Both Jeffries and Fitzsimmons denied a fix, as did the referee, as did most newspaper editorials, if not their reporters. But unanswered is, why would Fitzsimmons, who dominated until the middle of round 8, suddenly drop his hands, say something to Jeffries, and allow himself to be put out, first by his own famous solar plexus punch? That's how Fitzsimmons dispatched so many of his opponents. And then being hit by a crushing right to the jaw. Controversy did not end there. It was also rumored that the cuts and bruises inflicted on Jeffries were the result of plaster wraps on Fitzsimmons' hands. Jeffries, who had inspected Fitzsimmons before the bout, and by the way, a local paper did report that Jeffries shook hands with Fitzsimmons. He then examined the bandages, and he appeared to walk away satisfied. Anyway, Jeffries, who inspected the hands, later said, and I'm quoting Jeffries, the plaster of Paris in the bandages had hardened, and they had the same effect as if Fitzsimmons had brass knuckles on each hand. And he later said that Fitzsimmons admitted to it. All we know is that Jeffries did inspect and apparently give his okay to Fitz's wrapped hands. We know also that Jeffries did not wear any wrappings under his gloves. And we know that Jeffries' injuries were very unusual if regular gloves were used. And we know that Fitzsimmons appeared in the ring with his hands already wrapped. Now, that's a violation of then current protocol. But keep in mind, this is long before any regulatory organizations existed. That is the story. The first seriously controversial heavyweight championship fight. Did you enjoy it? If so, tap the like button. And do comment below, subscribe, and share these videos. Thank you.